Yeah, I think it's the consumer behavior, right? Like you don't book a hotel or a flight without looking at what it's going to cost. And if you don't think that people are price shopping you online, you're wrong, regardless of how good you are. So I think starting at is totally fair. On our services page, we have things like laid out really easy in columns. And like I have those columns memorized so that when I'm on a discovery call, I can say, yeah, you're falling between like offer one and offer two, or it's probably going to look more like once you do this, then you can do that because I can mentally like commit that. Kiss my aesthetic, branding, marketing, entrepreneurship. Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. I'm so excited to have two guests with us today. Welcome, Jessie and KP.
Hey, thanks so much for having us.
Yay, I'm really excited, and hopefully you guys can track along with who's talking when, but I'll try to introduce as we go along. But first and foremost, we always love to hear who you are, what you do, and how you got started. So who wants to take it away, KP or Jessie?
So I'll go first. So I'm KP. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the founder of Inkpot Creative, which is a queer-led brand and web design studio building unconventional online experiences for photographers and creatives who are really leading their industry by creating something different.
I love it. How long have you been at this so far with Inkpot? Like, give us the history, give us the backstory of how you even got to that beautifully crafted mission statement.
So I started back in 2020. We both graduated in 2020. We all know what the world was like then. And I honestly really struggled to get a job like during that time. I applied to like 150 different positions. I graduated with a dual degree in graphic design, media arts, minor in English, really wanted to go into publishing and was really just struggling to find a job. So I ended up landing an online internship for a course creation agency. And while I was there, the founder was like, KP, like, you're pretty good at this. You should just start your own business. And that's just kind of how it began. So I like to say I'm kind of like an unexpected entrepreneur, which I'm sure we can all really relate to. And
Totally.
I started off doing social media, pretty quickly realized it wasn't for me, switched into brand and web design in spring 2021. A year later, got super, super busy. And Jessie was working a full-time job at that point. And I was like, I need help. Like either you can leave your job and come help me, or I'm going to find help somewhere else.
I love that. I love that. And Jessie, what was your full-time role up until that point?
So I was working a remote customer service job, which was okay. I applied for a ton of jobs out of college. That was literally the only job that like got back to me and answered my application, and I happened to get it, which was great. And so it was okay at first. It wasn't bad. It was a decent job right out of college, but quickly became something that I did not love doing, and it was just not what I had intended my life to be. I got my degree in psychology, and originally I was planning on becoming a psychologist, going back to school, getting a PhD, all of that stuff. But after my last semester of online classes, graduating, I was like, I'm schooled out. I do not want to go back to school. This is the last thing I want to do right now. So once KP started to get, busy and overwhelmed, I was like, you know what, let me give this a shot. I technically have a minor in graphic design and media arts because KP and I actually went to college together. That's where we met. We were roommates. Nice. We played sports together, and we just wanted to take classes together. And I was like, whatever, I'll just take, your graphic design classes and we'll see what happens. So I had a little bit of a like baseline knowledge of it, but nothing like super, super intense, and just kind of dove right in. Really was like, I'm going to figure this out. I jumped into development and like project management and stuff like that. Used a lot of Google and YouTube and like courses to learn how to develop everything on multiple platforms and figure it out. So now I think I'm a little over 2 years in working with Inkpot, and it's been incredible. I can't imagine doing anything else in my life.
Oh, we love that. That's super exciting. I bet you, because I was a fine arts and art history major, so I learned a lot of graphic design stuff like by Googling it as well. But I've got to imagine that you used your psychology degree a lot more now than maybe you thought you would have. Is that the truth?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of kind of understanding human behavior, understanding how to support people, especially when people are making, bigger investments in their business and maybe doing something a little scary and stepping out of their comfort zone or, trying to get their business to the next level. So I think there's a lot of stuff that I learned, even in just getting like my bachelor's in psych, that I've been able to kind of take into actually the like human side of interacting with our clients, making sure they feel heard and supported, and kind of adjusting what that looks like for all of the individual clients, what their needs are, how they kind of interact with us, picking up on different things that they say and figuring out if they're actually happy or if there's something that needs to be, fixed or anything like that. So I definitely definitely use it a lot. I'm thankful that I have it. I think it's been really useful. And I, obviously loved everything that I was doing and learned in school with it. So it's been really nice to be able to actually kind of apply it to my work now.
No kidding. No kidding. My mom's a psych major and my sister is also like a child psychology major. And it's funny, she's a wedding planner now, my sister, and she definitely uses her child psychology in dealing with people around weddings. But KP, talk us through your whole suite of offerings. So someone wants to work with you, and how would you approach their project? Like, what is the full breadth of what you guys offer? Kind of give us that so we can lay the groundwork when we get into our further questions here.
Yeah, of course. So we used to offer a lot of things. We've really kind of like whittled it down in the past year as we've realized like what we love doing most and what we find makes the biggest difference. So our first offer is called the Rebrand Edit. We wanted to try to play on like that whole photography sort of vibe with it. And that's our 4-week brand and website transformation offer. So we actually fully do the branding in 2 weeks and then we do website design in 2 weeks right after. We love that too because photographers are always so busy. So we can be like, listen, we only need 4 weeks of your attention and then you can run free. And then our other offer is actually called Back Pocket Blogger. And with that, we really wanted to offer something that was a little bit like unexpected for a design studio. I have a background in blogging. I started blogging back in 2012. I have a travel blog, really into that. But I basically wanted to find a way to kind of help people actually put their website to use after they got it. So that's kind of where like that whole blogging thing came from. And that's a 6-month service. It's kind of like an on-demand service where people can submit a form at any time. They can request a blog post. We write it within 72 hours and we publish it for them. And it's for 2 posts a month.
Amazing. Okay. So I definitely want to get into the website of it all because similar to you guys, I used to also offer 1,000,005 services. And there was a time where I was like, yeah, I can totally do your Squarespace website. And I was like trying to do everything as a team of one and realized like branding was my sweet spot. So I ended up dropping websites. But now our team is like tinkering with getting back into them because I think there's a lot about websites and website philosophy that has changed in the last 5 years. So let's even take it back to what you said, which is like your background is in blogging. How has the landscape of website design morphed even since you first started in 2012? Let's just kind of like give a brief history.
So my background with like websites with blogging really started back on Blogger. I don't know if anyone listening like even knows what Blogger is, but like even back then, everything used to be just like so plain. Everything used to be so contained. I don't know if you remember, like even 10 years ago, like websites were very like just central on the page with so much white space. And I think really over, especially even like the last 4 years as more people have gotten online and like built their businesses, we've really seen a rise in like actually having a personality driven brand and website. So really just having something that almost is more unexpected for your industry just to really break the mold because everything really does start to kind of look the same over time.
Definitely. Yeah, I think also the way that we use websites has changed. It used to be that when you'd find someone on Instagram, you'd like go to their website to see if they were legit, right? Like to see if they if they had their shit together. And now I feel like the inverse is true. Like you may go find someone's site and then you're cross-referencing their social media to see if they're legit. Because on the social, they're going to have things updated more regularly. There's just going to be more action, more comments and things to kind of binge. Do you feel like that's the same, Jessie? Or like how do you feel that like website user behavior has shifted?
I think we're in an interesting space where we are seeing people like finding, SEO has become really, really important. And a lot of people are starting to focus on it and getting that kind of organic search. But then you are seeing people, flip over to social media and be like, okay, let me see like current work or products or whatever it might be. And so I think we're in this like interesting point where they're almost like they're both really important, but for different reasons. Because I think your social media is a great place. Like obviously it can be difficult, even for us, it can be difficult to keep your website updated with all of the new projects that you do all the time, especially if you're doing a lot. But putting out a social media post can be really quick and easy, at least get it out there so people can see it. So I think we can't underestimate the importance of that. And people are, on social media all the time, and that does matter. But I think we're still seeing kind of this shift of people wanting more information and being like, I want to know everything. And I feel like the kind of buyer psychology, but behind like how people are actually purchasing things, what they're paying attention to, what they want to know before they reach out. And especially with Gen Z coming up, like we don't love to talk on the phone a lot. We don't love to ask, like, we just want to know all of the information and make the choice and then book you right online and not have to interact with anybody, because we are a little more introverted and we don't like all of those, conversations like that. So I think the important part for us, I think, is finding the balance between the two of them and making sure that they both look great. Because if your website looks great, but your Instagram isn't that great, or your social media isn't that great, or if your social media looks amazing, but then it's a completely different vibe on your website, people are going to get confused and you're not going to have that kind of brand consistency. But I still think it's definitely important to be able to have that information, have kind of the more fleshed out stuff on your website. Because obviously you're not going to talk all about like every detail of your process or every detail about a project on social media, but your website is a spot where you can kind of do that so people have the information that they really want to know.
KP, what are your non-negotiables in a good website? Like, all good websites must follow these 5 rules, or 10, or however many you think of, that you walk your clients through, that someone who's listening to this could be like, okay, I need to go do some homework now.
One, a really easy to find contact page. I can't tell you the amount of times I've like
Yes.
left the website because I'm like, where the heck can I contact you? So like we always say to just put that in a button, like actually outline it, put it in like the top right corner, because when people land on your site, they're going to read it in F, which is a really weird fact. So you really want to like capture their attention up there. And then on your contact page, always have more than one way to
Say
contact
something
you.
more about read it in F, because I think I knew what you meant as like a heat map, right, of like their visuals. But tell me, say that in maybe more detail for people that have never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, absolutely. So when someone lands on your page, like right on like the homepage of your site, they're actually going to read all the way atop, like all the way along the top of the page first. Their eyes are going to kind of stop at that like top right thing, whatever you have up there. Then they're going to go down and they're going to read that next part. That's usually where like your hero statement would go, which is basically just the words you have before someone scrolls. And then they're going to continue down the page, and it's going to kind of like continue as people go down the page, which is why you really want to make sure that like what people are kind of drawn to, like in that top right corner, is actually the contact button. And you can also make like your nav bar sticky too, so that it really just like follows them as they're scrolling.
Right. Okay, back to what you were saying. Sorry. Easy to find contact page number 1. What's your second tip?
On your actual contact page, have more than one way for people to contact you. Like some people might feel like they don't necessarily fit the like constraints of your contact form. So it's always nice to at least have, your email listed on there.
Okay.
Next, another one we always say is no dead ends on your site. So basically when someone gets to the end of your page, always have somewhere else that you can send them, almost like a choose your next adventure sort of thing. The only page that might not be necessary, we like to say, is your contact page, because that's usually the ultimate destination.
Sure. Ooh, I love those. Jessie, do you have more to add to that list?
I think actual information about your services and what's offered. And I will say, I know there's a lot of back and forth on whether or not pricing should be on your website. And everyone has very polarizing opinions and are in like one camp or the other. But I think from what we're seeing now, people want to kind of know everything about the investment that they're about to make before they actually reach out to talk about it. And I think part of it comes from us not wanting to waste other people's time too, because we know our time is valuable. We don't want to waste other people's time. And if we get on a discovery call and we're like, wow, this is way out of my budget and I did not know that, and now I feel awkward and I don't know how to end this without being like, I can't afford this right now. So we always like to say some way for people to see some sort of pricing information. So that can be either having your prices on there, having a starting at price so people can at least see that, having, a pricing page that people sign up for your newsletter to get access to it, whatever it is. But I think some sort of information like that, we've seen, some people are kind of shifting to, if we don't see the prices, I'm just going to go to someone who I can see the prices, because all the information is laid out right there.
Yeah. What do you guys think about hiding the pricing behind a subscription opt-in? Are you for it or against it?
I feel like we've gone back and forth. We have had it hidden before on our own site. And I think it kind of depends on really what your goals are, I guess, especially as you're like growing your email list, and how many people you see actually like sign up for the pricing guide and then book. I feel like if you're seeing a lot of people who are signing up for it and then never booking, not doing anything, like maybe it's not worth it, because then you're going to have an email list of a bunch of people who aren't aligned leads for what you're looking for. So if you want to try it out, I say you can. However, I think if you're at the point where you're just like, I don't like, maybe it's custom packages or it depends or something like that. I think an easy way is just putting a starting at price so people have an idea, or, typical investments range from X to X, so that people can kind of be like, okay, is this in my range? Is this in my budget? Is this something I can maybe like move a couple things around to be able to make the investment? Or like, is this something that I need to put off a little further?
KP, are you on the same page with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even way back in the day when I started the business, we actually had it hidden behind a price wall. And I really realized that like our list was growing with a lot of people who weren't booking. So that's why we ended up switching to just having it public.
Yeah, I think it's the consumer behavior, right? Like you don't book a hotel or a flight without looking at what it's going to cost. And if you don't think that people are price shopping you online, you're wrong, regardless of how good you are. So I think starting at is totally fair. On our services page, we have things like laid out really easy in columns. And like I have those columns memorized so that when I'm on a discovery call, I can say, yeah, you're falling between like offer 1 and offer 2, or it's probably going to look more like once you do this, then you can do that, because I can mentally like commit that. I know one of my like irks, and I'm wondering if you guys feel the same with website design, is like the never ending landing page to nowhere. Right. And I think there was like an era where this was really successful, right? I think of the Jenna Kutchers of them all, like where having that really long, like strong appeal, big, heavy copywriting sales, da 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 for your service, like made a lot of sense. I think now as consumers, we're kind of over it, but you guys both nodded your head. This is an audio podcast. So I want to give you a chance to say something about that. Go for it.
I think it's definitely one of the things where we have seen some websites that you're just like, is there an actual end to this page? Like I keep going on and on and on and on. And it gets to the point too where it feels like sometimes you're just saying things to say things and you're like, that's not actually adding anything to the point of what you're trying to get across. And I think it's one thing where if you do have a lot of information that you want to share, like one of our favorite things is making it interactive in a way. So having it in little like sliders that people can go through, because I think sometimes when we look at a page and we start to scroll, occasionally I'll like start to scroll on a site and I'll look over to the side to the little scroll bar. And if it's like super tiny, I'm like, I'm never getting through this page. Like this isn't going to be good. But if you make it a way where it shortens it, it makes it more easily digestible for people, they're actually going to be able to take in that information and kind of find what's important for them. Because most of us are going to be like skimming the page to figure out what we want. And if we have to scroll for 45 minutes to get to the point that we want, like it's not going to be that great. Or at least if you have a really long one, having like some sort of anchor link thing at the top that goes to the different things, so that if you're like, no, I really only care about the investment and that's all I want to know, I can click this button and it brings me all the way down to the page immediately.
KP, do we also hate the continuous scroll for forever?
Yeah, I completely agree. And honestly, I think shorter sales pages, if you do want a sales page, are 100% the way to go, because people can always reach out to you if they need more information.
Well, and this is where website and branding and marketing, like these are all cogs of the same machine, right? Because by the time someone's on your sales page or on your services page, you've probably already appealed to them in a variety of ways, right? They've seen your socials, they've got a referral from someone, they've cruised your portfolio pages. Like really, by the time that they're on the page where there's the button where they can do the next thing to make the sale, like that, a lot of that pre-work has been done already, of like cementing themselves in the mind. But I do want to talk about portfolio pages for a second, because I think a lot of people struggle with portfolio pages. I also struggle with portfolio pages. I think when you're new, there's a tendency to like want to show volume and like want to show every project you've ever done since the beginning of time, to show I've worked with so many people and so many people have trusted me and therefore you should too. Whereas I think it really pays off to be more narrowed in your portfolio pages and a little more focused. We have a really good recipe for ours now, but I'm curious what you guys advise your creative clients on for creating a really compelling portfolio page.
So ours is definitely a little different because we work heavily with photographers. So like for them specifically, we're always like, please do not put every photo you've ever taken in a gallery.
Yes, exactly.
We tell them to stay like 30 or under in a gallery, because we're like, you have to think people, like couples are looking at so many websites, especially on mobile. No one's going to scroll through all of that. Like I know you think you need 5 photos showing off the cake because it's beautiful, but like really just try to like make it as cohesive and like short as possible. Because again, if people want more galleries, they can head to your blog. They can see like more recent things you've done there. They can head to your Instagram. Like there's other places that people can go and see a lot more.
Agree. Jessie, what do you think?
I think too, when it comes to it, it can be really helpful to have a kind of set formula, like you said, you're working on, of showing off more than just like photos of what you did, whether that's, photographers we work with, like showing the photos that they took at the wedding, or like even us showing, mock-ups or brand marks or websites or whatever it is. I think finding a way to almost turn your portfolio pages into case studies so that it
Yes.
actually shows the transformation. I think that's a big thing, because I think a lot of us are looking at things and we're making investments and we're like, okay, how can this like relate to me? What would maybe be my journey on here? How would this look like? So if we're able to be like, okay, here's where they started, here's where they ended, here's what we did, here's, the struggles they had or what they did for this specific thing or how they made it their own or whatever it is, people are able to kind of see themselves in the work a little more. And that's going to make it more personal to them and maybe connect with it a little better. And even better if you can put like a testimonial from the,
Totally.
people that you worked with on the page to kind of hone that in even more. But I think having just a little bit of extra information, and I know like a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what to put. Like if you're a designer, it's just, where they started, what they were struggling with, why they came to you, why they made the decision. Like even we've worked with, wedding pros who it's like, okay, talk about, what their idea was, what they picked, what style they wanted, like anything special that they did for their wedding that other people might not even know that they could do. And they're like, wow, now I have like 100 new ideas and this is great. There's always something that you can talk about when it comes to the kind of case study stuff. And I think it really just helps you connect with those people a lot better.
Yeah, there's an analogy when it comes to web design that always stuck with me, which is like your website is as if you're creating your own magazine, where nobody really wants to pick up a magazine of just ads because then that's a catalog. Like then you're just looking at a catalog. So especially as a service-based business, if your website is supposed to function like a subscription magazine, you want to be able to read interest pieces. You want to get the deep dive. You want to see the process. Like you want to be able to like binge through all the pages and really feel like you're getting value from each page, and not that it's just like you were saying, KP, like a giant gallery of images. Like that's fun and all, but it's not really telling me the story. Like same if you were going to go work with like a personal trainer and they only posted pictures of like super fit people all the time. You're like, okay, great, like you're fit, but I want to see the person that looks like me in the before photo. You know what I mean? Like you want to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's going to benefit from the service. So I think that that's really useful. I find that people also struggle with their about page. You're both nodding again, so we're it's conclusive there of how much to put, what's interesting, what's not interesting. What do you think about explaining how important is the about part of it?
So we've found actually that the about page is one of the most visited pages on most people's websites. So it is definitely important to make sure you are like using your about page correctly, but you do not need to tell your entire life story. I know that's where a lot of people tend to struggle. Basically, just tell the most important story of like kind of how you got to be where you are now. And usually there shouldn't be more than like, 2 different sections on like the about page. Like don't go overboard, because again, if it's a wall of text, people aren't going to read it. They're going to keep scrolling. And of course, you can always kind of like have a little bit more information that's like related to you or anything like that in your story. Also like kind of hidden in fun fact sections. I know a lot of people are like, oh, those are so 2019, but Jessie and I still love them. We still like say, yeah, that could be a great way to connect with someone who's visiting your site. And, someone might find a connection point that then might bring up on like a sales call. And that might be a reason why they reached out to you, because you both love How I Met Your Mother or something like that. So yeah, definitely don't sleep on the about page.
I think it's also a great place to put forward your values. I love that you guys led immediately with your mission statement with values as well. This is a conversation I'm always having with my clients, and especially as we're in like a political year, like things can get kind of hairy, get kind of crazy. But I'm always telling our brands that we work with is like, this is a great place to remind people of like, what are your core values? Like, what is your ethos? Where does that belong? For me, that feels like about page material. What do you think, Jessie?
I think having that space is really great. And that is kind of the best place to do it, because I think sometimes we get stuck in I don't know where to put this. And it feels awkward to just like throw it on a page, because then it feels like it's not authentic or genuine, or, it just doesn't flow. So I think having that on the about page is a great way to, again, people are going to go there to connect with you. I think we're seeing a lot of people aren't just investing in businesses, they're investing in people. And they want to know that the person that they're investing in is someone that like has the same values as them, shares their, similar interests or stories or backgrounds or whatever it might be. So I think that's a great place to put it and have it there and highlight it. I also think you need to make sure you actually have pictures of yourself on your about page. I can't tell you how many times we've seen websites and we're like, these are all like, this isn't people want to see you and know you. And I know it can be really awkward sometimes to like get in front of the camera and get brand photos done, but it's going to make you feel so much more personal, and it's going to make you feel more like professional and put together if you have these photos that aren't just like a picture you took on your iPhone 7 years ago.
Right.
And
Or you're using the same stock photo that 6 of your competitors is also using. Like, I think
exactly.
it's still, we're still falling victim to the 2017, 2018, like laptop, coffee, notebook, flat laid, and like that somehow is the stand-in for everyone's service for everything creative.
Mhm.
And I think getting outside of the box, to both of your points, like really helps. It kind of cements you in the memory of your clients, like in their mind's eye. Like it does help you with that differentiation factor. I would imagine that you guys spend a lot of time collecting a lot of content from clients. This can also be a pain in the butt when doing websites, right? Is like, send me your photos. No, your actual photos, and send me your copy, and send me all the places that things need to link to. What's your favorite like tools, systems, processes for pulling that out of the client?
So we use Dubsado for a lot of things now. We've kind of
Nice.
gone back and forth. We have Notion as kind of our project portal where we have all of our clients. We like list everything out. We give them dates for everything. We're very upfront with, since we do have a 4-week process, it is quick turnaround time sometimes on leaving feedback. So we're very upfront and clear on like, this is when feedback on this is going to be due. This is when you're going to get it, and everything's kind of laid out there. But we have started to use Dubsado, just like a Dubsado form, to collect all of the photos, copy for all of the pages, policy stuff, all of the any videos you want on it, your newsletter, form, embed code, all of that stuff. And that's been really helpful for us and has worked really well. I think also figuring out what works best for the specific types of clients that you work with is really big, because not every client type is going to be comfortable in different platforms, doing different things, learning different things. So if you work with people who are not very tech savvy, giving them the most complicated tech option to submit their stuff is going to probably not work out for you in the long run.
Sure.
So definitely making sure that. And then reminders. We have been trying to get better at it, and like setting up automations and things to remind people and remind people and remind people, because especially the way we design, like it is based on the copy that you give us. So like if you do not give us the copy, we have nothing to design based off of. If you don't tell us, the things that you like or don't like, or the vibe of your brand, like there's not a great way for us to actually design your brand. So definitely figuring out systems to set reminders, even if it's just like scheduling them in Gmail so that you don't have to worry about it when they first sign. I think that's been a big help for us of keeping on top of things and making sure that people actually turn things in and you have the stuff you need before the project actually starts. We normally make ours due the week before we actually need it, so that if there is someone who doesn't get something in or has questions or anything like that, we have a little bit of wiggle room. I would definitely not suggest making the due date the day that you're going to start doing something, because that's always going to turn out bad for you.
Exactly. Isn't that funny that that's like a universal experience with creatives as well? It's like the clients, like sometimes you have these like gold star clients that are so eager and so ready to get started, and they just give you everything up front and they're just like on it. And then inevitably that gets followed by a client that like you have to basically like hunt them down and be like, I need you to give me the stuff or I cannot do my job. Right.
100%. That always happens. And you're just like you wish everyone would just have it in early and on time and complete. And like,
Totally.
it never,
Totally.
it's never going to work out that way. But every once in a while you get it. Every once in a while you catch it in time and you're like, hey, I just need this one more thing. Like, can you get this to me? And that's it.
Definitely.
But it's always a struggle.
With not so much time left, because this went by way too quick, I'd love to know from both of you what you're excited about when it comes to websites. Like what trends or functionality or things that, being as people on the inside, you're looking at and being like, ooh, I think this part could really take off. And I think we're going to have a lot more clients ask for XYZ. Anything come to mind?
For me, lately, I'm seeing a lot of client requests, and it's one of the things I love, for like a lot of sticky scroll actions. So this is like when you're scrolling and, half the page page is like stuck with like some text, and then the other side is like kind of scrolling with images. That's something that I'm really loving. It's a really fun way to add movement and really just like catch people's attention as they're scrolling.
Ooh, I love that one. Jessie, what do you think?
I think for me, it's people not being afraid to use color. And obviously, we work with a lot of very colorful and bold creative. So it's great for us. But I think we're kind of seeing the shift away from everything looking like the same website template and using like black, white, and off gray and beige for everything. And everyone's like, no, I actually want to throw some colors in here. Like, I want to be bold. I want to stand out. I think the more people we can get kind of on that board, the more just fun it's going to be online and see websites and interact with people and not feel like, we're sitting there and we're like, was that this business or this business? Because I feel like I can just switch out the name and it's the same thing.
Totally. I think also not overlooking copy. I know when none of the three of us are particularly copywriters, but when you land on a website that has incredibly good copy, it just makes such a big difference because that, like you said, is the basis of the design. So everything is built around the words, meaning that like the words, like let's say something a little more compelling or a little bit more eyebrow raising than just your standard. I help blank do blank. The end.
No, we 100% agree. And it's one of the things that we always talk about, especially, we do blogging, and a big pro of blogging is it's going to drive that organic traffic to your website. But the thing is, once they get to the website, it's your copy that's going to keep them scrolling and keep them reading. So you can have the best brand ever. You can have an incredibly designed website. You can have all the traffic coming to your site. But if you're not saying the right things once they're on the site, people are just going to leave. So we do think copy, like absolute. We invested in a copywriter. It's so important.
It's one of those things that I think like we love ChatGPT, but like ChatGPT cannot write everybody's website. You know what I mean? Like it's a great brainstorm tool, a copilot tool, but I think you're totally right. Like it's the combination of all the things. It's the copy, it's the visuals, it's the photography, it's the structure, the organization of your site that makes a huge difference. And I love what you said at the beginning too, of like, it needs to complement whatever's happening on social media. There's too often we put all of our eggs in one basket and then we forget that like, oh shit, that basket might break. And then now where do they go? Right. So any advice that you'd give to someone who's thinking that they might need help with their brand or website before the end of the year? Things to think about, things to keep in mind, advice, what you got?
I think the biggest thing when it comes to starting the process of doing like a rebrand and website, anything like that, is making sure that you really take the time to understand like who you are, why you're actually doing what you're doing, and who you want to work with. Because those are kind of the three main things that are going to dictate what your brand looks like, what it stands for, your brand voice, how you're talking to people, like everything is going to be based on that. So if you're kind of flipping back and forth, if you're not sure, if you're not solid in that, we see it happen where you tend to like, you get a brand and then it's okay for 6 months. And then you're like, this doesn't feel like me anymore. And then I do it again. And that process just repeats over and over and over. So really taking that time to like dive into your own business and figure out why you are doing what you're doing and like how you're doing it different than other people is like such an important step that I think sometimes a lot of people skip over, and it can really make a big difference.
Totally. KP, any parting words of advice?
I would say too, definitely try to plan at least a little in advance if it is kind of on your mind. You really don't want to be the person who's like, I really needed a website like yesterday. So a lot of times too, designers, especially in winter, I find a lot of us tend to get really, really busy. So if you're like thinking about this now is kind of like the perfect time to start reaching out to people. So just making sure you kind of give yourself that runway. And then also know that like if you do have like a month or 2 month wait time, that is okay. Because trust me when I say you're going to need that time to really get clear on a lot more of like your brand and everything like that, and just kind of working through prep and stuff. Especially when you're doing your website, that copywriting, if you do end up DIYing, takes a long time.
Totally. I always save every December to revisit my website because if I try to do it any more often than that, I'll get so distracted and like basically destroy the whole thing and build it all over again. You guys are both nodding as if that's a regular thing to do. So I know December's around the corner, and believe me, I've got my own laundry list of things I want to do differently on my site. How often are you tuning up Inkpot? More
We are
regularly than me, probably.
We are ideally once a year. We
Yeah,
do smaller updates of like portfolio
sure.
pieces and like updating offers, everything like that. We kind of have to. KP is the type that does love to redesign the website very often. And now that we're kind of growing, it is getting to the point where, we've curated our portfolio and kind of brought it down a little bit. For a while, we had like over 100 pages on the site. So
Right.
redesigning
Right.
100
Same.
pages is
Same.
not a quick task. But ideally, we kind of look at it once a year for bigger design changes. If there's anything like earlier this year, we went through a full rebrand. So the whole
Nice.
new brand itself and the website and updating, all of that to make sure it kind of aligns with that. But I think once a year, once every 6 months, if you're really
6
like
months.
maybe if you're newer in business, once every 6 months to make sure it still aligns where you are. But once you're kind of confident and solidified in where you are, like once a year to just make sure that everything fits and looks
Everything
good. And
works.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Totally, totally. Well, thank you so much, ladies. This was a lovely conversation. Don't forget to follow Inkpot Creative. Please plug yourself. How can people work with you, find you, see your beautiful website, all these things?
So you can find us online at inkpotcreative.com. We're also at Inkpot Creative on like everything, Instagram, Threads, Pinterest. If you're on there, we're just pretty much everywhere. And you can also find us on our podcast, the Unexpected Entrepreneur Podcast.
Yay! Love it. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good rest of your day. And if you love this episode, don't forget to share it, post it, tag it, send it to a friend, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.